Welcome to what was the beginning of the modern era. Behind us, as you can see by the license plate, this is the E30 BMW M3. Now, why I say this was the beginning of the modern era, this is probably the first kind of normal sedan, normal coupe that a company took and made sporty, made cool, made look a lot more aggressive. And if you look at today's cars on the road, especially what enthusiasts are driving, it's stuff similar to this. So today we're gonna go for a drive in the E30 M3. I'm gonna tell you guys why this car is so significant, why it's so special, and why it changed the car community as we know it today. Okay, so we are in the E30 M3. Normally when I review these cars, you know, I drive them around for a day or two before, get to feel them around the city, and then I can kind of talk about what I think of the car based on that. Now with this car, it was a little bit different. First of all, if you guys remember, probably around this time last year, I had the E30 M3 Sport Evo for a day. So that was my first E30 driving experience. And now this is my first time driving the regular E30. But this last weekend, I just drove this exact E30 M3 to Connecticut and back, putting about probably 17 or 1800 kilometers on this car in a span of around 36 hours. And that gave me a whole new respect for this car. What I mean by that, this car handled a road trip better than I could have possibly expected. When the opportunity came up to take this car on a road trip, at first I was a little nervous because obviously older cars like this, you're gonna be a little scared, you know, is it gonna hold up well, can it handle a road trip? Am I gonna get stranded on the side of the road? And the second I picked it up, I realized this car feels very solid. This car feels very well made. Even though it is old, it feels old. It doesn't feel like it's gonna break. It feels like it can keep going forever. And the more I drove it on the road trip, the more I felt like this car could keep doing it. And the reason for that is kind of leading up to my main point in this video. So the E30 M3 was kind of the first, you know, they did I think with the M5 before, but for a more affordable situation, they took a 3 Series, they made it a sports car. And back then, that wasn't really a thing in every car. You know, nowadays, every car's got the sporty version, every car's got the fast version. This was the first one back then. And because of that, you know, you take a regular car that's supposed to last forever, especially German cars, the way they were built back then, they last forever as long as, you know, as long as you properly service them, they're very, very reliable. And this is just that. This specific car was properly serviced. There's only 34,000 miles on this car. So, you know, you're averaging about 1,000 miles a year since the car came out, and it's been properly serviced the whole time. And because of that, it's built like a regular family sedan that was supposed to just do things and supposed to survive and supposed to complete tasks. Whereas a little bit after that, the cars kind of shifted their focus into just being a sports car. So before I tell you about how this car drives and maybe how it differs from the Sport Evo, let me tell you why I think this car is so important. Now, yes, it's the first M3 and it's very important because of that, and it has a cult following because of that. But if you look at today's car community, if you go to any car events, car meets, most cars aren't really like Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Porsches. Most cars are the sporty versions of regular cars. You have your Civic Type Rs, you have your SIs, you have your Subaru STIs, you have your M3s, your C63s, your RS4s. Now, all of those cars, those ideas came from this car. This is when they took the regular affordable car and made it cool. And not only did they make it cool, they actually made it look a lot nicer. I mean, you put this next to your skinny average E30, I mean, it's a world of difference. This aged so much better than those. And that started a whole trend to now every car company has these. Every car has a version. This car revolutionized how we deal with cars. It revolutionized the car community, the types of cars that people buy, and made it so pretty much everybody can have a practical sports car. So a big part of the reason why this car is so important is because it made it possible and doable to own a sports car, both in the financial perspective and also you could live with this car. I mean, back in the day, cars weren't so big. So you look at the back seat in this car, if you had a family and you want a sporty car, you could get away with having a car like this. And everybody who now drives an S4 is a family car, RS6 is a family car. I think they kind of have this car to thank. Now, let's get on to another very important part. How does this car drive? So, I'm not gonna lie to you, this isn't a fast car. I drove the Sport Evo last year. That car had about 50 horsepower more than this car, and I thought that was painfully slow. This car is painfully slow from a start. if you're accelerating from 0, you're not really gonna get anywhere. But the one thing I absolutely love about this car is the word momentum. You gotta work based on the momentum on the car to get it going anywhere. Once you're moving, you're moving. This weekend, I cruised with an XJR15, an E90 M3, all those cars that have double, triple, quadruple the horsepower of this car. And on a country road, while I was already going, I was keeping up. It's just from going to a stop, the engine is not doing much. This is a 4-cylinder with 197 horsepower, I believe, might be 194. So you can't expect it to do much, but the car is so light that you just gotta keep on going and it will carry the speed pretty much everywhere. The handling in this car is unbelievable. That's what this car is meant to do. This is a more handling kind of car than a straight line speed. This is a 1990 car. You'd think it would drive a bit like a boat. This is one of the flattest cornering cars I've driven, and you know, it's so old because this car is so small, so light, that it's so much fun. It just flies around corners, and you gotta be a little more rough with it. I'm not saying destroy it, but you gotta make it want to go. It's not gonna go at 2,000 RPM. You're gonna have no power. I went straight from the M4 CSL into this. I haven't really driven a modern car in 4 or 5 days, and you get used to it, but you just gotta push it a little bit. You gotta grab it by the neck, and you just gotta push it to where you want to go, and you're gonna have such a fun time. This is a car that you can enjoy on regular roads, not break too many laws when you're having fun. You're not going too fast because at the end of the day, it's not that fast of a car, but you're gonna have a blast. You're gonna have a great time around corners, and you're gonna be shocked at how well this thing handles the corners. So the reason I think this car is so special and this car is so important is because it's so pure. Nowadays, you look at all these M3s, RS5s, C63s, they're not anymore purely bought by car enthusiasts. Those cars are now more of a status symbol. They became so well known that it's almost like buying a Ferrari or Porsche. It's a bit of a show-off thing. I feel like back in the day when you bought one of these, it wasn't to show off. People didn't really know what these were. Like, if you're not a car person, this is not what you're looking at. This is a car, if you wanted to just enjoy your daily commute more, this is what you bought. Nowadays, people buy these, you know, C63s, E63s, and a lot of people don't know anything about cars. They just, oh, I want the AMG model, I want the M model, and it's like a status thing. It's to kind of try to show off to the next guy, to show him you have a better car. This car wasn't about that. This car wasn't about flexing. It wasn't about trying to be better than somebody else. This car was just about the joy of driving. And in an era where we're kind of starting to head back towards driver's cars, people are going to look back at what started all the cars that did it best. This thing's definitely going to be one of them. So yeah, that's my experience with the E30 M3. I had the Sport Evo before. The Sport Evo was a little more raw, a little tighter, had a little more power, had a dogleg shifter, which made it feel a little more special. But I'm not gonna lie, the driving experience is not that different. This one, obviously the interior feels a lot more comfortable. You have kind of a regular car interior in this. So, you know, it doesn't feel as much of like a race car type sensation as that car. But again, this is your everyday sports car. You know, nowadays this is like a classic car, but this is supposed to be a daily. It's supposed to be a reliable car you're gonna drive every day, be comfortable in. You have a good radio, nice seats, everything just looks very, very good on the car. And yeah, so I mean, in my opinion, this is why the E30 M3 is such a special car.